I've played every Mario RPG, and I've been a fan of these games since I was 4. Today I'm going to rank every Mario RPG from worst to best in my own opinion. Starting it off at number 16, we have Puzzles & Dragons Super Mario Bros. Edition. So this game seems to be really forgotten, as I just almost never hear anyone talk about it. It is technically an RPG though, which is why it's on the list, and personally this just isn't my type of game. I had fun with it for a bit and think it's a well-made game, but I just couldn't get into it. It clearly takes a lot of inspiration from New Super Mario Bros. For the aesthetic and the characters, so there aren't any rich story elements or unique locations and characters. It's just Puzzles & Dragons with Mario elements, so if you are into that genre, I think you will have a really good time with it. For me, this game is just pretty simple, and I got bored of it pretty quick, so that's why I have it at number 16. But if you like the match 3 type games, I think you will really enjoy this. And at number 15, we have Paper Mario Sticker Star, which all of you probably expected to be the last game, but to its credit, I do like it better than Puzzles & Dragons Mario Edition. But even with that being said, I do not like this game, and I've said that many times. There's just so many objectively bad design choices here, and it still baffles me how Nintendo made a very similar sequel to this game, and then a sequel to that game. But before I talk more about that, it looks great for a 3DS game and has a nice soundtrack, but that's pretty much it. There's absolutely no story for a series that was known for having some plot to keep the player engaged and following along. And this was the successor to Super Paper Mario, widely regarded as the best story in any Mario game. Like, you could find a story in New Super Mario Bros. That's on par with this. Besides the story, there's no unique characters or environments. Like, remember how everyone loved the brand new characters in the first 3 games? And the really strange and unfamiliar environments? Well, Sticker Star has Goombas, Koopa Troopas, Shy Guys, generic Toads, and Bowser's the main villain. I think the only unique character in this is Kirsty. I don't know if there's a single other one. And of course you have unique environments like the grasslands, deserts, jungles, and a frozen tundra. Yeah, you get the point. The battle system is completely pointless as there's no XP. Like, you're better off avoiding enemies and using your stickers for mandatory boss fights. And now we gotta talk about the backtracking, because it's bad here. So many RPGs do have backtracking, including Mario RPGs, and it works to various degrees. But Sticker Stars is just so horrible and stupid. Like, it seems like no thought was put into this at all. All you do is go to random levels and hope you find the specific thing, yes, thing, you need to advance in a later level. There aren't really any hints or anything, it's just a random exploration, which might be fine if these items were somewhere you would expect them to be around, but sometimes they're just in completely different worlds. One of the few semi-redeeming qualities in this game though is that the soundtrack, like I mentioned, is decent. It's nowhere near the level of other games in the series, but it certainly does its job. I really can only remember a few songs from this game though, and I really just don't like Sticker Star much, and it was not difficult at all to put it as one of the worst in the ranking. I know a lot of people may have nostalgia for this game, and I played this when I was pretty young. Like, I think I played this game when I was maybe 11. And while I may have nostalgia for the time period I played it, even at a young age, I just really didn't like this game that much. At number 14, we have Mario & Luigi Paper Jam. So this now 9-year-old game, almost 10 years old now, was the latest entry to the Mario & Luigi series before Brothership last year, and it seemed to be the last for a while because Alpha Dream went bankrupt after the Mario & Luigi remakes on the 3DS. But fortunately, that was not it for the Mario & Luigi series. And also, just a side note, how is this game almost 10 years old? Like, I was making videos about this game before it came out on my first channel, and now it's been almost a decade. But existential crisis aside, Mario & Luigi Paper Jam is just not very good. It's the Mario & Luigi series Sticker Star with bland locations, same old characters, minimal story elements, repetition, etc. At least with Paper Jam, there is XP, so you have a reason to battle. I actually like the idea of having paper characters in this universe, which is why this game is just so disappointing to me. Like, you had a chance to bring back so many beloved characters from the first 3 Paper Mario games, but instead it's just the typical Koopa Troopas, Goombas, Toads, and Bowser's the main villain. Like, imagine Dementio, the X-Nuts, or Cross-Nuts, however you want to pronounce it, various partners coming back. Paper Jam at its core is just a stripped-down Mario & Luigi experience with just some flat-out boring elements like the Toad hide-and-go-seek games and the Papercraft battles. Papercraft battles are not fun. They may look fun, but it just had so much potential to be great, but it just feels clunky to say the least. And once again, the soundtrack is alright here, but definitely the weakest of the series. One thing I will say is, unlike Sticker Star that just completely changed Paper Mario, Paper Jam very much is a Mario & Luigi game, it's just a stripped down version of it. At number 13, I have Paper Mario Color Splash. So Color Splash, to its credit, is better than its 3DS predecessor, but it's still not a great game. I'll start off with the positives though, because this game definitely has some more positives than the previous games. So the soundtrack here has a unique theme, and many of the songs have this ragtime ragtime feel to them, and you could really hear the orchestral sounds in many of the pieces as well. The game also looks fantastic. Like, I'm not a fan of the whole obsession with making everything paper. I prefer the first 3 games simply using it as an art style and not having the entire game be about paper, but it looks great nonetheless. The humor here is also pretty enjoyable, but after that, that's where a lot of the positives run out. The story feels like an afterthought once again. The environments and characters just feel uninspired yet again, albeit there are a few bright spots. Like, there are definitely some areas that are a little more unique. Bowser's the main villain again. Well, kind of. Like, he's possessed by the black paint, which, I mean, I guess that's technically a different character. And the battle system here is once again pretty pointless. The only value it has is that you can upgrade the amount of paint you can carry, but it doesn't really do that much as you already store plenty. Additionally, it's just super tedious as it takes forever to use a card. Like, in my video going over the biggest flaw in every Mario RPG, the battle system was the biggest flaw for this game in my opinion. You have to select it on the gamepad, fill it with paint, swipe up, rinse and repeat. Color Splash really just feels like an improved version of Sticker Star, but that really isn't saying too much. It took a bad game and made it kind of mediocre instead of just flat out terrible. And get it? Flat out, because paper's flat. Okay, moving on. And at number 12, I have Paper Mario Origami King. And I know a lot of people, especially younger fans who weren't around yet for the first 3 games, really love Origami King. And while it was significantly better than Color Splash and it took more steps forward from where Color Splash was, it still feels like a modern Paper Mario game, like a lot more Sticker Star than the original trilogy. And I just don't like the style nearly as much as I do the first 2 Paper Mario games in Super, so it's really limited to me how much I can enjoy this. Unlike the previous games on this list, I did enjoy Origami King. Color Splash I enjoyed at times, but is very mediocre to me. I think Origami King is a solid game on its own. I think the soundtrack is absolutely amazing and gets better the more you listen to it. The world's a lot more open this time, as you don't have a world map going level to level. And for the first time since Dream Team, which came out 7 years before this game, there's truly a unique main antagonist in King Ollie, I guess unless you want to count the black paint. And partners are kind of back. You don't control them at all, but it still is something. And like with Color Splash, the game looks fantastic. However, the story, while better than the recent 2 games, still doesn't hold up to the original trilogy. Everything is still paper, except some bosses, which I'll get to momentarily. And as I've said before, it was called Paper Mario as the design was just supposed to take inspiration from a storybook, not have the entire world actually made out of paper. Like, this is the 3rd game in a row they're doing this, and I'm just not a fan of this, especially after 3 games. The gimmick has gotten stale, and there are definitely some more unique environments than the past 2 games. But once again, it pales in comparison to the original trilogy. The combat system is better now as it doesn't have stickers or cards, but there's no experience points, which puts little incentive into battling. Even Color Splash has more incentive to battle. The board you move enemies around on is an interesting concept, which I think plays out alright, but it just gets too tedious like the battles in Color Splash. But of course I still very much prefer the original style in the first 2 games. And I mentioned how I would talk about some bosses that were not paper, and if you played Origami King, you already know what I'm getting at. There's Legion of Stationery, which is office supplies that you fight. I thought it was a neat little concept, but I would prefer to have more fleshed out villains like in Super Paper Mario. Like, you're gonna tell me like Stapler is the same as like Dementio or Mimi or O-Chunks. This seems like Nintendo is hell-bent on just improving the Sticker Star formula instead of completely changing it up or making a sequel to T2ID or Super. And yes, I know Origami King is different from Sticker Star, but it still shares a ton of the same aspects and problems. At least getting the T2ID remake shows the original games aren't forgotten, and it gives some hope that Switch 2's Paper Mario could be a return to form. And number 11, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. So this crossover has absolutely no business working as well as it does. It combines the Mario series, the Rabbids series, and has them fight in XCOM style battles, and it was received so well that it actually got a sequel, which I never saw coming if I'm being honest. I'm usually not a big fan of tactical RPGs, but I had a really good time with Kingdom Battle. It was also pretty challenging, at least for me, since I'm not very experienced in this genre, but it still felt fair for the most part. Although there were definitely some difficulty spikes. The knock on this game is that there just isn't much of a story, and that it kind of feels like a gauntlet of battles compared to this grand adventure. But the combat is just so well designed here that it was hard for me to put it any lower. Like, I enjoyed this more than the games before it, but tactical RPGs still aren't my favorite, which is why it's kind of mid-tier in this video. And following up at number 10 is its sequel, Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. While this game is fairly similar, Sparks of Hope just makes plenty of improvements to transform what was already a very solid experience into being that much better. The world is much more expansive with so much more to do compared to its linear predecessor. The story is better and even introduces some Rabbids lore, and of course the combat has been upgraded, which gives you a lot more customization and possibilities. No one knock on it is that I did like the weapon progression better in the first game. There's a lot more customization. This game kind of takes that away, but everything else here is so much better. And also the soundtrack here, like the soundtrack was good in the first game, but they have have 3 legendary composers here, making this one of the highest quality soundtracks in the entire Mario RPG series. At number 9, I have Mario & Luigi Brothership. So the newest entry on this list and the long-awaited return to a beloved series. Brothership is the first game in the series to be released on a quote-unquote home console. It looks good, but I'm still unsure about the art style. There's no question Nintendo took advantage of the massive technological leap from the 3DS to the Switch. The game itself is fun and feels like a Mario & Luigi game, but the tutorials and difficulty just kind of make it feel like it's a game for little kids instead of feeling like a game for everyone. Dream Team had the same issue where the tutorials held your hand like you were blindfolded and trying to avoid walking into Goombas or something. My biggest complaint is how Luigi just feels disconnected from Mario and the player. Like, remember how fun it was to control the Mario brothers by pressing A for Mario and B for Luigi and using their different powers? Luigi is controlled by AI now, which takes a lot of the charm out of this game. The NPCs also just don't have as much charm as the first 3 games in the series. It's a decent game, but there's a few massive mistakes here that bring it down. I still did enjoy it, and my opinion could change as time goes on since this is still pretty fresh in my mind. But also, there's just something about it that kind of feels off compared to like the first 4 Mario and Luigi games, and I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if it's the music, just maybe the vibe it gives it since there is a different composer here, but I don't know. To me, Brothership is like a 7.5 out of 10, around that. Like, it's not an amazing game, but it's definitely a very solid experience. I think the game also overstayed its welcome a little bit, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. And number 8, Mario & Luigi Dream Team. So this was the last solid game in the series we got for a while, and to a lot of people this was the last solid game we got in the series, even with Brothership. It takes the Mario & Luigi series to a new perspective, which I do give it credit for, and the Dream Worlds were a breath of fresh air for the franchise. The Dream Battles just give so much more creativity, like this was my favorite part of the game. It's very different from the real world battles, as you have huge groups of Luigis to use in attacks. Part of being in a dream means that the final fight may be a fight where Luigi becomes a giant and you fight a giant enemy. Sound familiar? Yeah, that's something else that was in Bowser's Inside Story. You even turn your 3DS to the side, just like that game, and I'm glad it returned here. Now, as for the story, you go to Pillow Island, where you do have some of your basic Mario locations mixed in with some new terrains. Luigi goes to a castle and ends up falling asleep on a pillow that gives him the ability to have the previously mentioned dreams. The main villains are Bowser and Antasma, and Antasma wants to cause destruction to the Pillow civilization and wants power. Now, Antasma is no Fawful, but he's definitely an interesting villain. Some flaws with Dream Team are just the tutorials at the beginning just go on way too long, and why they did this again 11 years later in Brothership is beyond me. I know some people would say it's not a flaw, but for me it was very noticeable. And like with Brothership, I think the game does overstay its welcome a little bit. Like towards the end, it definitely became a little bit of a slog. Overall, it's still a great game, and I know some people have this pretty high up, but for me, I just can't really put it higher than the first 3 Mario and Luigi games. At number 7, I have Super Mario RPG Legend of the 7 Stars, and I just want to make it clear here, I'm talking about the remake. Like, while I did play the original, I think the remake is just a far superior game, so if I had these as separate rankings, I'd have Super Mario RPG, the original, right before this. But the games are very similar, like this is a very faithful recreation of the original. So the original came out before I got into gaming in like the mid to late 2000s. Had I played the original when it came out, maybe I would have it higher, maybe I'd be more nostalgic to it. It was a very dated game and desperately needed a remake, and then the 2023 remake just absolutely knocked it out of the park. And also, just to be clear about something, I'm also going to be referencing things about the original. Like when I say that, many of the ideas here would become staples in later Mario RPGs. Like, this had a lot of inspiration for both Mario & Luigi and Paper Mario. The timed hit system is one, but it's not nearly as polished. The writing isn't the greatest, which is to be expected from the first time there was an actual attempt to make the story more than just an afterthought for a Mario game. The movement in the overworld still feels a little clunky even in the remake. Like, trying to platform with like this isometric view just doesn't really work great. Like, is it better in the remake? Yes, but it still gave me problems. And then the soundtrack just has so many memorable tracks. Like, it has a great cast of characters, most notably Gino, who is still a fan favorite today. This is the first time you get to team up with Bowser, and this journey really feels like a classic RPG adventure. And I could just go on and on about how I'm so happy they finally remade this. Like, I enjoyed the original Super Mario RPG, but this just really allowed me to fully appreciate this game. I do think it's a little short, but once again, this is a now almost 30-year-old game, so it makes sense. And I'd actually much rather have a game that's a little shorter, but that's great the whole way through, than a game that just really overstays its welcome. It just makes me want to be done with it. At number 6, this is going to be one of the most controversial opinions you'll hear in this video, and I've had people get very upset at this, but it's Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. So a lot of people either have this at number 1 overall, or at least number 1, or maybe number 2 for the Mario and Luigi series, like you're very rarely going to see this lower than 2, but as you can tell, it's my 3rd favorite in the series. So before I get to my full explanation of why it's 6th on this list, I just want to talk about the carrot minigame, because I got Inside Story when it came out all the way back in 2009, like when a lot of you probably weren't even born yet. I was like 6 or 7 years old, and it was one of the first games I got it released, and having played both Superstar Saga and Partners in Time, I was really looking forward to playing Inside Story. Every day after school, I would continue progress through this game, until one fateful day when I got to the carrot minigame. I was literally stuck in that for like a month, and I absolutely hated it. Maybe that still negatively affects my view of this game, I don't know. But anyway, for the rest of the game, I really like the concept of having both these worlds to explore, but I do think it could have been executed a little bit better, as I thought the Mario and Luigi sections were a lot weaker than the Bowser sections. And also something I want to make clear here is I'm talking about the originals here. I never really played the remakes much, and they are very similar games. Like, it irons out a few issues, like makes it look better, but I also prefer the music in the originals. Anyway, going back to what I was saying, the Mario and Luigi sections being in 2D does limit it, and I know obviously there only is so much variety that can be put into it when they're stuck inside Bowser, but the overworld and Bowser sections are just so fun to explore, and I did enjoy the puzzles there better as well. It was a nice change of pace to have these Bowser battles added in as some variety. And the writing and Inside Story is some of my favorite in the series, as Alpha Dream also got to bring back some of the classic characters like Fawful and Popple, also adding a lot of unique faces. The completion time of Inside Story also feels perfect. Like, it doesn't drag on, and it doesn't feel like it ends too soon. Like with pretty much every game on this ranking, the soundtrack once again is amazing, and the final boss theme is literally just a masterpiece, like one of the best video game songs ever. And I don't think this is an unpopular opinion, but let me know in the comments, but just something about the original DS version just hits so much different than the 3DS remake version of this. Like, listen to In the Final on your DS and then compare it with the remake. Like let me know if you agree with what I'm saying. And number 5, right above Bowser's Inside Story, like it's extremely close, I have Mario and Luigi Partners in Time. So a lot of people don't like this game. For a while it was considered the black sheep of the series until the quality started to diminish, but I know I'm not alone with liking this game. So anyway, like with Inside Story, I have a story with Partners in Time. I just finished Superstar Saga and found out it had a sequel, and I wanted to pick it up since this was a time before online shopping was really as mainstream as it was today. I kept trying to find it in stores, but no one had it in stock until I just went to a GameStop and they had one copy left. I love the time travel aspect of Partners in Time, and I thought the shrooms made for really interesting villains. The map was disconnected as each area was traveled to via portals instead of the more open exploration seen in the other games, but it makes up for it with how greatly designed these places are. Like Yuba's Belly, which is actually the second time the Mario Brothers got trapped inside a big reptile/dinosaur. There's Font Volcano, Holly Jolly Village, Vin Factory. Just so many more locations in this game that are just brilliantly designed and feel really fresh to the series. The game's not perfect. Like, instead of bro points for special attacks, there's these items that you find or buy. I think this is a lot weaker than having bros points. Pacing can be off at times in terms of how strong you're going to be in relation to where you are in the game. Like, you're most likely going to have to grind out some XP instead of just naturally progressing. And as for why Partners in Time is ranked higher than Bowser's Inside Story, even though it's an unpopular opinion, it's as simple as this is a completely subjective list based on my own enjoyment of each game, and I just happen to enjoy Partners in Time more. Now, if I was looking at this objectively, I think Bowser's Inside Story is probably the quote-unquote objective better game, but I had more fun with Partners in Time, and that's solely what I'm basing this on. At number 4, I have Paper Mario, and this game deserves a lot of credit for starting off the series on a great note and laying the groundwork for the games to follow. Now, the story isn't the best, but there is at least an attempt with it. The Peach interludes are a great way for you to get more engaged in the story, and it does get a pass for having Bowser as the main villain since this was the first Mario RPG to do so. But there's just so many brand new unique characters, from the partners, the Toads that actually have distinct personalities, new bosses, NPCs, and there's also new locations like Shy Guy's Toy Box and Flower Fields. And even in the more typical environments like the grasslands and desert, there's just so much more going on here. Paper Mario also had a brand new battle system where every bit of damage counts. You're not going to be doing 50 points of damage with an attack, so you need to think about what you're going to do. The customization with badges also adds more strategy in as well, because you just have so many different options at your disposal. This is just an amazing game that started this great series, and I hope we get a remake of this like T2ID someday. And now getting to number 3, where all 3 of these games are in my top 10 video games of all time, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. So this actually is the first Mario RPG I ever played. Superstar Saga started off the series with a bang, just like Paper Mario, and every single successor has followed the same basic formula of Mario and Luigi traversing through an overworld, using and getting new abilities like hammers, a higher jump, a spin move to go across gaps. And the Bean Bean Kingdom is a ton of fun to explore as it introduces so many new and quirky characters as well as brand new locations to explore. One of my personal favorites is Woohoo University, where the main baddies are the viruses from Dr. Mario. And spoilers for a 20-plus-year-old game, this is where you fight Cackletta for the first time, which was a huge surprise. Like, I was expecting to fight her at the very end, not halfway through. And of course you still do fight Cackletta at the end, but instead of Bowletta, and it is actually Cackletta's soul, which is the hardest fight in this entire series where you have 1 HP each. The rest of this game is pretty easy, like it's not that difficult of a game, but the fights just feel so smooth, and considering this is the first game in the series, it's still such an amazing game. And like with Bowser's Inside Story, I've never really played the remake, but even without that, Superstar Saga is just a timeless game. Number 2, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. So this game pretty much improved on the original Paper Mario in literally every single aspect. I guess the one aspect it didn't improve on is you didn't have like that spin move to go a little faster, but I digress. And anyway, the story, gameplay, combat, characters, environments, soundtrack, like Thousand Year Door took what made the original great and just made it even better. The partners have more personality than they did in the original, and there's some really amazing and unexpected chapters, such as joining a league where you keep battling in hopes to finally beat the legendary Rockhawk to win it all. There's a mystery on a train that had a private investigator penguin attempting to solve it. I think this is the best chapter. And spoiler alert, you even go to the moon at the end a whole 13 years before Odyssey did it. Battle system is also greatly improved over the original, and even puts you on a stage with an audience that can both assist you or also try to hurt you. Thousand Year Door also has a more interesting story, with the new villains being the X-Nauts led by Sir Grotus instead of Bowser. Then there's also the Shadow Queen, which makes this game a whole lot darker. There's just so much more to say about this game that just makes it so amazing. You have the Piranha Mafia and Rogueport, which by itself is something like you can't even imagine seeing in a Mario game nowadays. You have the amazing soundtrack, which I believe to probably be the second best in the series. All the hidden secrets, the humor, the new gameplay mechanics, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. And I've probably mentioned it 5 times in this video, but we finally got a remake / remaster, whatever you want to consider it, after like 20 years. So go play that if you have not been introduced to this game yet. Like, I think the remake is better, but I think they're very similar. What the remake / remaster does is it irons out a few flaws, like has some quality of life improvements, and also adds a decent amount of music. I think this is the objective best Paper Mario game, but there's one that I personally just like better. Before I get back to the ranking, I just want to say I'm closing in on 4,000 subscribers. So if you like Mario RPGs, I have a lot of other videos like talking about the best and worst songs in the series, going over the biggest flaw in every game, so I think I have a lot of content you'll enjoy, so be sure to subscribe. And at number 1, I have Super Paper Mario. Like every subjective ranking I do with Mario RPGs, I have Super Paper Mario at 1, because it's one of my favorite games of all time. It's a controversial opinion, not something based on necessarily anything objective. It's just my own personal experience with the game. If you don't like Super Paper Mario, I won't change your opinion, you won't change mine, because we just can't control how much we enjoy a video game. Different people just enjoy different things, and that's fine. The story is absolutely amazing, and it's something that really just won't be seen in another Mario game most likely, because stories have been a lot simpler in the Mario series since then. There's just so much lore in this game. Like, there's entire videos going over all the lore in this that are like 45 minutes long. There's brand new villains like Count Black and Dementio, which makes the stakes in this game feel like a lot bigger than most other Mario games. Count Black wants to destroy all worlds due to a tragic event in his life, and there's a few very good twists surrounding this later in the game. The soundtrack also, in my opinion, is just the best in any Mario RPG. There's just so many great songs in this, like The Ultimate Show, Gloom Valley, Merle's Mansion, Samus Kingdom, just so many more. While the game is very easy, it's also fun to explore all the environments in 2 different perspectives. And as for environments themselves, like, let's just take a look at a few. There's a sweatshop located in a giant mansion, a world completely made of bits, a Japanese-inspired kingdom that pits you against samurai-inspired characters. There's the underwear and over there, and the gameplay, while being very easy, is still very enjoyable, as it plays more like a traditional Mario platformer with RPG elements. And you know what? That's alright. It's still more an RPG than Sticker Star, Color Splash, and really Origami King also. And there is that one turn-based battle later in the game, which is a nice homage to the previous games in the series. I've had some people say some really nasty things just because I like Super Paper Mario the most. I've had a lot of people say my opinion is invalid, or people acting like their opinion is better because of that. And frankly, I just don't care at all, because I'm not trying to act like Super Paper Mario is the best game objectively ever made. Just like with all the other games in this list, this is just based on my personal experience. You don't need to get upset at this. I want to hear your list in the comments. And this doesn't just go towards me, but be respectful to other commenters. Like, these are just people sharing their opinions, people who love the same series that you love, who just had different experiences playing the same games. And this is just for fun. It's just supposed to be a fun thing. It's just video games. And I know with Mario RPGs especially, like, there's a lot of toxicity in the community. There's a lot of elitism with some opinions on these games. And honestly, just enjoy the games you want. Don't let someone else tell you that you can't enjoy Sticker Star if you enjoy that, or you can't enjoy Paper Jam if that's your favorite game. Sorry about the rant, but I just want people to be comfortable sharing their own opinions on their favorite games in the comments. So if you did enjoy this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and consider joining my Discord. And then if you want to see some exclusive content, consider becoming a channel member for just a couple bucks a month. And if you're new to the channel, I probably have a lot of other videos you'll like. just with Mario RPGs alone. I mentioned some earlier in the video, you'll probably see some here in the end screen. And I have videos on a lot of other Nintendo content, so thank you for watching Domainy, and I'll see you next time.